Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Administrations and Public Works Committee, Monday, August 11th, 2014, and we have a quorum. Could we have approval of the minutes of the July 28th meeting?
Move approval of the minutes of the July 20th, 2014 meeting.
It's been moved in second. Are there any questions, additions, deletions? Not. I see no lights. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Item for consideration, A1, City of Evanston.
Oh, no, you're going ahead. I was just going to start, but you go ahead.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Sorry.
City of Evanston's payroll through July 27th, 2014, $2,957,954.83.
Second.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? City of Evanston's bills through August 12th, 2014, $3,542,597.70, and credit cards through June 30th, 2014 is $165,312.16.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We had questions on the bills list. Alderman Rainey, were they answered sufficiently?
Yeah, excellent.
Okay. See no lights. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Alderman Brethwaite.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move item 3.1, approval of the replacement purchase of a 100 aerial ladder truck from Pierce Manufacturing in the amount of $1,016,811.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. No lights. All in favor?
Wait.
I'm sorry, Alderman Rainey. I didn't see your light. Alderman Rainey?
I'm just wondering if we heard from any of our property tax exempt entities indicating they would like to assist the good taxpayers in this community with this purchase.
Yeah.
Marty?
Good evening, Marty Lyons, Assistant City Manager, Madam Chair, members of the committee. No, there was no communication between the city and Northwestern on this piece of equipment. We did file for the same or similar grant that we received 4 years ago? 3 years ago, but we're not successful. If you recall, we did get a grant for approximately $600,000 for the previous ladder truck.
Well, and you're talking about a certain not-for-profit tax exempt institution,
Yes.
right? But I mean, there are a lot of not-for-profit property tax exempt institutions in this community. And I think the time has come where when ladder trucks are costing $1 million plus, and this isn't even all decorated and everything, it's going to be more than this. People need to start ponying up. It's just outrageous that this truck will go to every tax-exempt property in this community, and it'll go because we, the taxpayers, are buying the truck. And so I would just like to implore our staff and members of the council to know about, we need to know about these things that they're coming up for purchase so that people can go out and start begging. I mean, if we have to, or shaming. I don't really care which. The time has come when we need help to make these purchases. $1 million is a lot of money for one truck, and it's worth every penny of it. And anybody who gets one of these trucks at their house, either because they're having a heart attack or a fire, knows how much they're worth.
And we'll schedule out, because we do know the ones that will come up next would be the pumpers, which are $400,000 to $500,000. So we have not completely missed our opportunities.
Okay, thank you.
Wait a minute, Director Lyons. Alderman Brethwaite?
Just a quick question for the chief. So is this replacing, it says it's a replacement purchase. So is it replacing a truck that we already have in the fleet, and what happens to that truck? Are we going to keep it, sell it at a later date?
Correct, Alderman Braithwaite, Chairman Holmes, members of the committee. Yes, we're replacing truck 23, which is at Station 3 up on Central Street. That truck is 1991, so it's 23 years old, and that will replace that, and that will not be put in reserve. We're going to sell that shortly for scrap. So.
Thank you. It's been moved in second. No more lights. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
A3.2, I asked you to move approval of contract extension with Third Millennium Associates Incorporated for the 2015 wheel tax print, mail, and fulfillment services. The estimated cost is $48,042.54.
It's been moved in second. I see no lights. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Alderman Rainey?
3.3, approval of a contract with Insituform Technologies USA LLC for the Cleveland Street Sewer Rehab Project in the amount of $264,260. This is contingent upon receiving the appropriate loan funding from IEPA in an amount up to $272,188 for the construction of the project.
It's been moved in second. No lights. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Alderman Grover?
Chair, I move A 3.4, which is approval of our rock salt purchase. It's an extension of an existing contract, but the cost goes up to $84.58 a ton for a season total of $634,350.
Second.
And that's 7,500 tons of rock salt. I believe we have a reserve of about 500 tons.
And I think it's at the recycling center right now. It's salt, isn't it?
Is it?
Yep.
Okay. It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. A 3.5, approval of a contract award to the Midwest Fence Corporation for the Dempster Street Beach Boat Rack Expansion Project, bid 14-47. Staff recommends that the council authorize the city manager to execute a contract for this expansion in the amount of $72,641.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 3.6.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move item 3.6, approval of the contract from Baltic Marine Services Incorporated for the Watercraft maintenance. Staff is recommending the City Council authorize city manager to execute a contract for watercraft maintenance and repair services with Baltic Marine Services Incorporated in the dollar amount of $35,226.25.
Second.
It's been moved in second. No lights. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
A 3.7, I ask you to move approval of the purchase of methane monitoring systems for the Levy Center and Dawes School. The cost of installation for the Levy Center is $23,728, and the cost of installation for Dawes School is $18,826.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
A 3.8, we're asking for approval for additional James Park landfill testing to the law firm of Jeep and Blazer LLC for costs to be incurred by the firm for environmental services to be performed by Jeep and Blazer's consultant SCS Engineers in an amount not to exceed $106,000.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Alderman Rainey.
Yes. Madam Chair, could we get just a brief explanation from a staff member regarding this additional James Park testing?
Yes, legal will address that. Alderman Rainey.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Michelle Mason Cup, Deputy City Attorney. Alderman Rainey, the testing that is to be approved tonight is our second round of testing. It's a follow-up to the initial testing that was before you in the early spring. And this is just to characterize the gas further and to further define whether or not this is landfill gas or from a different source.
And the reason we're using another, is it the same kind of firm that the law firm is presenting to us, or a different kind of firm?
It's a different firm. The first
I know
firm-
it's a different
Oh,
firm, but is their focus is different?
Correct. The technology that will be used is very sophisticated and therefore more expensive. And it's necessary to further define the gas as we move forward.
So the first firm was certainly a qualified firm.
Yes.
And highly respected. And they determined that there was gas, methane gas.
Correct.
But what they couldn't determine is what is the source. And the first firm decided, I think it was the first firm, is this correct, that given the levels of the different testing, the results of the different testing, it didn't appear that that gas could have emanated from the James Park landfill. And this firm is going to tell us, I guess by very sophisticated testing, what is the source. Is that right? Sort of?
This firm will be able to tell us definitively what is the source.
Right.
The first round of testing is not able to come to that conclusion, and we need to come to that conclusion for the community.
Right. Okay, thank you. That's
Okay. Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Mason-Cup. We are, at this point, incurring some significant costs to both identify, monitor, manage methane at James Park. And you suggest there could be a different source for the methane that's already been detected, but not specifically identified as to location and source. What would be our options if the city of Evanston and its former landfill is perhaps not the source of the methane?
Correct. If the source turns out to be perhaps a natural gas pipeline, the city will pursue any and all legal remedies it has within our wheelhouse, including any RECR claims, which is a federal claim identifying solid waste and hazardous waste under the Environmental Protection Act. And we would pursue those likely with Jeep and Blazer, which is the law firm that's named in the council action.
So some of these costs might be recoverable then?
Yes, under the RECR statute they are, including
Great.
legal fees.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I see no more lights. All in favor? Any opposed? Now, Alderman Grover, you're up next, but would you please proceed to A5, because we're going to move A4 to the end of the agenda, because the person hasn't arrived yet, right? Okay, and then we're going to have a presentation with A5.
Great. I will do whatever you bid, Madam Chair. So
If you would do that, I would be happy.
every time. Moving on to A5, which is approval of the Chicago Avenue Improvement Project Design, which is preliminary design concept for the 2015 Chicago Avenue Improvement Project, addressing everything from street resurfacing to improvements for pedestrians and bicycle traffic from Davis to Sheridan Road.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second. Well, let's do the presentation before we vote.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee, Sad Nagar, City Engineer. We have a brief presentation. I'm just going to go over the slides. The scope of the project, basically resurfacing water main, the streetscape, and we are also proposing a two-way cycle track between Davis and Sheridan with bikes having their own signals. The purpose of the project is most of the NU students and the bikers from downtown use Chicago Avenue for the most part. We have pedestrians and the bikes, the cars and the buses all different modes of transportation pretty much getting mixed up on Chicago. You find the bikes on sidewalks, you find the bikes on the street. So all we are trying to do as a part of this project is to mitigate some of the safety concerns and provide each mode their own lane or their own space. Because the bikes will be there, pedestrians will be there in this section of Chicago, basically between Davis. As we go through this is to mitigate the pedestrian and the bicycle conflicts, provide access to the biking access to NU campus from downtown, and then this would be a comfortable and safe connection between Davis and Church. We already have the bike lanes on Davis as well as Church. So we need to, this is the first step in getting the NU students and the bikers from the downtown to the NU campus. That is the entrance at the Chicago and Sheridan intersection. Okay, this is the list of all the public involvement that we have done to date. We did come to the City Council March 31st. Then we went to the First Ward meeting June 3rd.
Excuse me, Zach, could you hold on one second, Alderman Rainey?
One of the things we discussed at our last council meeting where the bicycle plan was discussed was that we would begin to have neighborhood meetings regarding this plan. And at my meeting the other night, you told people in the room that we would have neighborhood meetings. I see that there was a June meeting, June 3rd, but that was before some of the controversies started to erupt. And I'm wondering, has there been or is there a meeting scheduled since July 19?
Yes, we are planning to go to the 7th Ward. It's going to be a community meeting. Basically, we're trying to finalize the dates with Alderman Grover.
All right, okay, good,
Yes.
good.
Yes.
Just
So, in fact, we went to the Parking and Transportation Committee as well, and we had a public meeting which was turned out pretty good, and we did ride the whole corridor from Church Street all the way up north. We had about 40 plus people who did ride the bike, and then we came back. So just to get a feel for what it would take to go on Chicago as well as on Sheridan Road. I'm just going to start from the easier section. This is between Chicago-Sheridan intersection coming south to Clark Street. Right now we have mostly non-metered parking spaces on both sides, and this parking is pretty much used by the students. So as a part of the project, I just wanted to make two things clear. There is no widening and there are no tree impacts. We want to make sure that the cycle track, two-way cycle track, is built within the existing street. There will be no widening. So what we are planning to do is remove the 16 non-metered parking spaces on the west side and convert the 19 non-metered spaces to generate some parking on the east side. There is already existing parking. We want to install the parking meters to generate some revenue on the east side of Chicago between Sheridan and Clark.
Just a moment, Zach. Alderman Grover?
The parking on the west side of Chicago, at that point, is it limited by hours? Is it 2-hour parking or is it unlimited parking? The metered parking obviously adds some turnover
I think it is
to the parking, so I don't remember either. I don't remember what that is.
To my knowledge, I think it is 2-hour.
Okay. So either way, we're looking at creating some turnover in the parking to support the businesses in the downtown area.
Yes.
Okay.
The next section, we could have installed the bike lane on the west side, but what we are trying to do is to go around. There are a couple of trees in the middle of the block, to go around the trees and try to separate the pedestrians as well as the bikes. At the same time, maintain some parking. So we will be pretty much retain 8 spaces between Church Street and Clark Street. So we're going to go around. Still, the pedestrian and the bikes will be separated by different materials in the elevation, but we will have the on-street parking in this section on the west side. East side, there will be no changes. We're just going to maintain the east side. This is the section that we feel will be impacted, but we have some measures to mitigate this. This is the section between Davis and Church. Most of the bikes that are coming east on Church will go north on Chicago, but if they had to go west, they have to use Davis. If we do not extend the bike lane between Davis and Church, then you will see most of the bikes will start using Church Street as a two-way, even though it is one-way. So we think we need to get them to a certain point where they can go west on Davis Street. So we would pretty much bring the bikes up to Davis and then they can go west. We are not making any changes on the east side, but we'll be losing 13 metered spaces on the west side. But in discussions with, this was suggested the Parking and Transportation Committee as well, in discussions with Ricky Voss. We have the whole ground floor at the Church Street garage. The parking is not being used. So we will have approximately 70 parking spaces, which will be assigned to our parking with first hour free. The occupancy rate is only between 40 and 50%. So there is enough space there that is not being utilized. So even though we are removing the on-street parking, we are providing plenty of parking at the Church Street garage. So since this is a part of the ITEP grant as well, we are in a little bit, fast-paced, accelerated schedule-wise. After the council meeting today, we need to go ahead and talk to IDOT, get them on board, make sure we move with the phase 1 approval as well as the phase 2. This is going to be concurrent phase 1, phase 2 project. So we need to go ahead and finalize the design and then come back to ANPW with our review of the final design, which will be pretty much what we have presented. I think we'll be able to stay with our design, what we presented today. And then go for project letting. This project is, since it has federal funding, has to be led through IDOT, and there's a longer time frame for them. So project letting and the construction. So we hope before summer we want to get done with this section of Chicago Avenue bike lane on the cycle track and provide a safer, cycle track, as well as move all the bikes from the sidewalk as well as the street to this separate their own space.
Alderman Burris?
Hi. Always good to see you. As you know, I'm extremely opposed to this plan. I think it really hasn't addressed concerns. I think that the limited actual meetings on this are also of a concern. The eliminating parking in the downtown, even though there's parking in the garage, we know, we're well aware, we hear all the time from residents that they want to park at meters closer to the businesses. We're trying very hard to do more economic development. We have a robust economic development program for downtown as well as other parts of the city. And this, I believe, is in contrast to our goal to bring more people downtown. This makes it challenging. And anytime we talk about eliminating more parking in that area, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Additionally, it is so tight in those two blocks. I just walked it twice today. And it's dangerous to add bikers on Chicago there. You have a lot of congestion happening. You have buses, you have cars, you have a lot of various turning happen. At Chicago and Church, right by the Whole Foods, how more people are not injured there, it is amazing to me. It is a dangerous intersection. And then we're adding in a bike lane to that. That just seems irresponsible, quite frankly. So that's one piece of it. The other part that I mentioned, I think, in the transportation meeting and maybe here as well, is you're now pulling everyone and dumping them at where Chicago and Sheridan meet, at another very dangerous intersection. You have I don't even know how many pedestrians, but it probably is one of the busiest pedestrian intersections in all of Evanston.
Yes.
And you have various turning arrows for cars, then you have obviously the pedestrians, and then you're dumping in bikes there, which then you want the bikes to stop there and cross, get off their bikes, walk, and then walk across again, so sort of a double cross, with their bikes, with cars, pedestrians, and buses all along there. Again, it just doesn't seem to make a heck of a lot of sense to me. On top of that, it's not coordinated with how you are then, let's say you do bring them down the west side of Chicago, again, which I think is wrong. You dump them there at Chicago and Church. You aren't explaining to them or giving direction on how to get to the lakefront path from there. You are also not then coordinating it with what will happen when the Sheridan bike piece that goes north from there, up Sheridan, how you're coordinating that piece of it. So it doesn't, being on the east side being on the west side of Chicago makes zero sense. Being on the west side or the east side makes a little bit more sense, not a whole lot more sense, particularly since you have the apartment building with the big berm. So a lot of people, if you're going to eliminate parking, which I'm against, you would put it on the east side. And then if you're bringing the bikes down to Sheridan at Chicago, you can do a bike lane that continues on up Sheridan, or you can make a bike lane that goes across Sheridan at the Arch, make a right and do a bike lane will then bring you into the path at the lakefront. Currently, how it's configured, it is very confusing and dangerous for pedestrians, bicycles, cars. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm continue to be disappointed by this bike plan. I don't think it makes sense, and I think it's a liability for bikers and pedestrians and cars.
So, is there a question in that, or that's just a comment?
That is a comment, and why you aren't coordinating it is beyond me, why you haven't taken into account. I'm sure that businesses have concerns about the parking. I think you've ignored comments from businesses. You've ignored the safety concerns of the community and of bikers. And I'm really befuddled why there isn't a better plan that coordinates with the lakefront. I don't understand why we're not continuing on to Hinman, where it's a lot less congested, or we're doing something further west. Why isn't this going to Hinman? Why aren't the bike lanes going down and connecting to the lakefront? I mean, I have my suspicions why, but I would like to know. It just doesn't make any sense.
Before you try to answer, Alderman Grover, will yours tack on to what Alderman Burris is saying? Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Nunagar. I think I agree that the missing link is from our downtown to the lakefront, but that's in the next phase, and that's not part of this part of the project. I've been on the steering committee for the Chicago Sheridan Road Improvement Project, and I can tell you that safety has been a paramount concern all the way along, and trying to do something that makes sense. In a built-up community with a lot of density in our downtown, and the fact of cyclists and pedestrians they're not going to move. They're going to be there, and they're always going to be there. The counts of the numbers of pedestrians and cyclists just at the Chicago-Sheridan intersection are astonishing to me, at the volume of traffic there. And I don't think that's going to change. Those cyclists and those pedestrians will always be there. The question is, how do we engineer a solution that gets us to protection for them?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And so we've got a lot of really good engineering minds on this, and trying to find the balance between how do we protect people, how do we minimize widening of the road, how do we minimize tree impact, and And how do we accommodate the real needs of businesses to have parking in close proximity to their businesses and still acknowledge that there are large numbers of cyclists who are going to be coming downtown and spending their money. A bike-friendly city is also good for business in so many ways. And I think we underestimate how many of people who patronize our businesses in downtown get there on foot or by bike and not necessarily requiring a car to do it. So I've been part of the discussions and the evolution of these engineering design plans for it. And it's a puzzle. It really is a puzzle to try to figure out how do we balance all of this? How do we find the best place to locate a cycle track, knowing that we need a north-south connection from our downtown to the edge of campus?
So
I don't know if Hinman's a better option.
Yeah, could you answer the question
But the cyclists
about
are
that?
already on Chicago Avenue and they're not on Hinman. And I think sometimes you need to put the bike lanes, the bike facilities where the cyclists already are. Similar to paths of intention. When the high school redid some of their front walkways, they paved finally, they created sidewalks where the students were already walking, acknowledging that students are taking, high school students, the shortest distance between those 2 points, and they simply made them permanent sidewalks. In this case, the cyclists are already on these roads. They're already on these sidewalks. I don't think we're going to move them a block east to Hinman. I don't think we're going to move them a block west. They're taking the shortest route, and right now it's just not as, I agree, it's just not a safe route. It's a heavily congested, very dense part of our city, and this is where they're going to be. How do we accommodate them? How do we make room for them? This proposal is the closest we've come to finding solving the puzzle of how do we make room for everybody in this area. And we've got some really great engineers working on this. And none of it is haphazard. They've gone through so many different versions and design proposals for it to get to this.
Alderman Burrs?
Yeah, the question of not going to Hinman still, I don't think, has been answered. And there aren't many people on the roadway here in Chicago. And to do this and not have it coordinated with Sheridan going north or getting to the lakefront is irresponsible. And there's no other way to look at it. And I think that we can do better than what we've done. I agree it's a puzzle piece. I am 100% for cycling. I walk downtown from my office regularly. I cycle downtown. I cycle to the health club. But this piece is not thought through in a well-designed manner that's going to connect going forward. We can do better than what we're doing on this. And that's my point of it. I'm 100%, again, for cycling, 100% for economic development. We shouldn't be taking this parking away. It just does not make any sense to me. And again, not coordinating with the lakefront and with what's going to go on from north of Sheridan is short-sighted. And that's what happens when we try to do things piecemeal. It just doesn't make sense.
I think that phase of it's coming to us later because it's still in discussions with the university as to exactly where to put the cycle track between, Chicago and Central Street.
Let me clarify one thing, then Suzette will take over.
Still making adjustments to that right now, based
but it
upon how
doesn't-
many trees are on either side.
But that, Alderman Grover, that's the exact point, is that we're doing it in a piecemeal fashion, which a puzzle piece, you're going to try to cram things together, and that doesn't make any sense to if you decide that you're going to have it on one side and then, it makes more sense if you're going north on Sheridan to have it on the east side versus the west side.
I think we're pretty close to knowing where it's going to be.
Well, there hasn't been public meetings. It's a secret, evidently. If there hasn't been public meetings about it in the whole overall community.
Well, they're all public meetings.
I mean, we have first ward meeting. We're going to have a seventh ward meeting. I'm sorry. Are there other wards that should care about this? Are there other constituencies, other stakeholders that should care about this?
Sure, anybody's welcome to come to any
But
board
when you
meeting
say
when it's
first
on the
ward,
agenda.
we're going to talk to the first ward people. We're going to talk to the seventh ward people. but we're not going to talk to anybody else. We're going to talk to the downtown businesses. What are the other stakeholder
I don't think that
meetings?
was the way that was said, Alderman Burst. That's not.
Well,
that's,
I'm just saying what's up there.
Well, yeah, but any of those meetings are open to anyone. So I don't, maybe they were held in those wards because it goes through that. But I don't think they would exclude other people. We don't want to do that. Alderman Rainey, and then we're going to have to move on. Alderman Rainey.
I know nobody's being excluded, but here's the problem. At my ward meeting, people expressed extreme concern about the way we've done the bike lanes thus far all over the city, not necessarily in my ward. Now, when there's a ward meeting, the 7th ward meeting, how are people supposed to know that live on Dobson that at the 7th ward meeting, the big topic of discussion is going to be the configuration of bike lanes? I mean, they don't know that, yet they're up there riding. So that's the problem. There has to be a very important alert put out that bike meetings are being held at the 7th ward meeting, at the 9th ward meeting, at the 3rd ward, at the 8th ward meeting, because my constituents were assured that there would be a meeting for the bike lanes down in my neighborhood. But your neighbors ride down Dodge, I'm sure. I hope they do. They have to get to Ward 8. So anyway, it's very important that we know about it. We know we're invited, but we don't know that they're happening. So.
Well, for this particular project, we actually held a citywide public workshop for the entire stretch, for Chicago Avenue and for Sheridan, and that happened on July 19th with the ride. And we had
40 people.
No, 40 people were on the ride. We had way more at the workshop.
And I was criticized by a constituent for not being there, so.
Quite a few people were there. But I want to address just a couple of things and why it appears that what we're presenting is piecemeal. We have a grant. So we have a grant which we brought to City Council before we applied for the grant and laid out the entire project to cover Chicago Avenue and Sheridan Road. And so that grant is for $1.5 million to do Chicago Avenue and Sheridan Road, the bike lane portion of Chicago Avenue and Sheridan Road. But understand that there's streetscape and there's street resurfacing that is desperately needed on both corridors. So, for us, it made sense to group all of these together to try to address all of the issues as it relates to biking. With regards to connections, there are existing connections on Church and Davis that eventually on the south end would actually connect over to Hinman and also Chicago Avenue. And I'll talk more about that with the 2015 projects, the up and coming projects, as well as the rest of the Sheridan Road. So there are the connection pieces, but for us, the timing is the issue for us. So we're trying to get Chicago Avenue done because that's the first project that the consultant is going to start constructing in the spring. So in order for us to get this done in 2015, we have to do Chicago Avenue first, so they need to have approval to start that design and start working with IDOT to get those approvals so we can then move on in June of 2015 to do Sheridan Road. We also have a portion of Hinman that is also scheduled for 2015 as well, to kind of connect the dots that you're describing. So, and if we can't put all of those pieces together, particularly as it relates to the biking piece, or it makes sense while we're redoing the road to figure out the biking configuration, then the project will move to 2017 because we have to do Emerson Ridge Green Bay in 2016, and we can't have both intersections and roadways closed at the same time. So, in all of this, for the CIP, the 3-year plan of, Sheridan Road, when we finished Sheridan Road in 2012, we indicated that in 2015, actually originally it was 2014, we moved it back a year to 2015 to resurface the last portion of Sheridan was there. So we have been out talking about it. The biking, you're correct. The biking was added to just, we applied for the grant and got the $1.4 million and said this will be a great opportunity for us to roll this into this project to get it done. So,
And my point is I'd rather have it right than quick. we're not going to change it. And it's been done haphazardly, is my point.
City Manager, you wanted to make a comment?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, the council and this committee has spent several meetings now talking about bike issues. I'm concerned that perhaps we are not in sync. And I think that if this committee this evening could either say, yes, we are in sync and that we need to continue to move forward, no, there's perhaps some additional work that needs to be done, or we just need to stop everything. Because I think rather than have these discussions continue, your staff needs I think, a clear direction. What I'm hearing is we are not in sync. And despite what we may have with grants, despite what we have with the plans, if we are not doing what you believe your residents, your constituents feel is appropriate, then this seems like a little charade that we're going through this dance with you each time. So if the committee, you could either provide direction, or if we need to bring this to the full council, but I think at this point the conversation is starting to get a little cyclical, and I don't think that's to anyone's benefit. Your time is valuable. Staff, consultants' time is valuable. So, Madam Chair, I would just ask if you feel we're out of sync, if you could give us that direction, and we would go back and regroup and come back to you in September. We have another presentation later in the evening. I don't want to have again the same discussion. If we need to stop and regroup a little bit.
Alderman Grover? It's the only light I see so far.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Bobquist. I think what would be helpful is was it 2 weeks ago that we started a discussion of the bike plan or this project, and it got held to this meeting? But what happened was we short-circuited the presentation that had all of the background information for this actual design. That is, the pedestrian counts, everything that went into producing this proposed design, and we haven't had the benefit of seeing and understanding that, I don't think, at all. Maybe that's how we're out of sync, is that we don't have the good background information that the engineers and consultants have produced that became this plan.
Well, and I think at that meeting there was sort of a visceral objection from several members of the committee even before we got started into the details. And so, again, that goes back to my point of my senses were out of sync in a very big way with this. And if we need to double back, I think rather than to continue to have these awkward discussions, if we could get clear direction from this committee or the full city council, what we need to do next would make more sense. Because I fear we're going to continue to have these discussions, and if we need to go 3 steps back to talk more globally about this, then that's fine. But I think we should do that versus having these conversations.
I'm not sure, are we interested in more background information about the counts, the data, all of the work that's already been done as part of this project and its design? Do we have a tolerance for
So I think
that information?
Get it to the full council as well.
I think, I was going to say, if we're going to do anything, I think it has to come before the council and not just this committee, because I think there are many opinions in terms of where we are with the plan. So
and I would appreciate one direction. I think it's difficult at this point, I think, to sort through the various messages I'm hearing from members of the council, and I think it would just be to our benefit as a staff to get a single direction from the council on where we're heading with these projects.
Alderman Rainey?
Well, I would move, I guess, that the information that Alderman Grover is referring to is provided to the council, and that the bike plan be a special order of business at a special meeting, not at a regular council meeting, so that we can devote a little more time to it.
Very good.
But I think we should commit to reading the information to those of us who haven't been at all the meetings.
Send this information as well. Alderman Grover?
Thank you. I think that's a good idea. And I hope it would include the presentation about alternatives, the array of alternatives that were considered and rejected for a lot of reasons that we all care about. And I think that would be helpful if we've got the time and the energy to undertake a better understanding of the bike design.
Well, and I think
is it the bike plan, Alderman Rainey, or this particular improvement project that?
Well, I mean, this is before us now, so it really needs to be dealt with. So perhaps that could be incorporated, like the focal
into the whole plan. I think that's where we need to go.
And Madam Chair, the City Council has Monday, September 29th currently open. Would we be able to bring this segment as well as the remainder of Sheridan Road to a special meeting of the council on the 29th? Because I think it's the Sheridan Road, Chicago Avenue piece, which is, I think, most critical, tied to funding. So I think there's going to be some additional meetings. We could have another meeting on this subject, a citywide meeting if you'd like, between now and September 29th that would have additional discussion. But those are really the segments that we're most concerned about. There are other segments that are further out into 2015 and beyond, but
Well, it's the 29th, that would be a fifth Monday.
that's correct.
Is that, what's on the third Monday? Are we already scheduled for the third Monday?
We do have some other things where we're starting to get, unfortunately, to get into the budget
Oh,
season.
okay. No, the only reason why I'm asking is because I was thinking the sooner we could do it, the better. You know, in
We
order
can certainly look at the calendar.
and look at it, and if we can switch it,
flip-flop,
and
maybe we
flip-flop
can.
it, I think that would be
Okay, well.
a good way to go.
So perhaps that could be the direction to the full, or maybe pulled from
I'm
consent
going
off
to ask
council
Alderman
tonight.
Rainey if she will.
That's
change
pretty
her
much-
motion.
That's pretty much my motion.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Can we get a second on the motion? Okay, it's been moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Is that clear enough? Okay, let's see, Grover, that was you, right?
No, it was Jane.
No, A6 is where we are now. The resolution 58-R-14 authorizing the city manager to negotiate a TIF redevelopment agreement regarding the Evanston Plaza Shopping Center.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm actually going to ask that we hold this item over to our next city council meeting.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second, it's being held. A7, Alderman Russell. Peter, can you do A7, please? Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move item A7, revisions to ordinance 74-0-14, authorizing the city to borrow funds from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency Water Pollution Control Loan Program in the dollar amount of, $253,000.
Second.
It's been moved and second. I see no lights. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
A8, I ask you move ordinance 95-0-14, sale of surplus property, fleet vehicles.
Is that second? It's been moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Alderman Rainey?
Madam Chair, A9 is ordinance 96-014. We're being asked to recommend introduction for increasing the number of Class D liquor licenses for Yoga and Renish LLC, doing business as Mumbai Grill, 1728 Sherman Avenue.
Second.
This increases the number of licenses from 49 to 50, sorry.
Okay. It's been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Alderman
Madam
Glover.
Chair, I want to increase the number of our Class D liquor licenses from 50 to 51 and move introduction of an ordinance for a liquor license for 10 Mile House at 1700 Central Street.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that concludes our items for discussion.
Pension.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mark, you were supposed to let me know when they got here. Are they here?
They are here.
Okay, so we go back now to A4, which is the approval of the January 1, 2014 Police and Fire Pension Actuary Report.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Marty Lyons, Assistant City Manager and Chief Financial Officer. We have the annual actuarial report before you tonight. This year's report does include a couple of different options. Once again, the city's police pension board, firefighters pension board, and the city treasurer have all worked together to bring this report to you, and that is still a rarity in Illinois where all of those agencies all work together rather than try and go their own way. This year's report shows an analysis both at 6.75% for an interest rate and 6.5% for an interest rate. So the interest rate is the assumption in these reports that is most often referred to, although it is not the only major assumption that affects our annual tax levy. for police and fire pension funding. So without going into too much detail, I'll just point out that using a 6.5% rate, which is about halfway in between what Moody's says we should have, they're at about 5.6%, and Fitch, which is at about 7%. That's per my most recent meetings with them when we were having our bonds evaluated. We're in between those two national ratings agency on what is a responsible level of funding for your pensions, or what they use. So I'm assuming I'll call it responsible because they use it. So given that, the amount for fire is $6,214,928, and the amount for police is $8,705,207, which would result in a $184,298 increase to the 2014 levy payable in 2015. I would make note that that recommendation accounts for a slight increase in police and a decrease in fire. We do not have to make the decision this evening whether or not to add anything additional if we wanted to have fire remain at the level that it was at in the previous year. That can be a part of our budget process. Tonight's action requested is to approve the report at one of these levels, or to give direction on how else the council would proceed. Mr. Art Tepfer is here. Mr. Darren Doherty from the president of the Firefighters Pension Fund, and Mr. Tim Schoolmaster, Police Pension Fund president, is also here. And gentlemen, if any of you would like to say anything beforehand, or they're here to answer questions and provide comments after council discussion.
Okay, I have Alderman Rainey.
Marty, could you just explain what those percentage points are, and that they are the return on the investment? Because you just threw out.
Sorry.
And I don't know that everybody understands that some of these funds by the pension boards are invested, and those are the expected return on those investments.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Yes, the city has, and all Illinois municipalities must make a variety of assumptions when it comes to determining how the pension fund will perform into the future. And one of those assumptions is, what rate of return will the investments in the bank that each fund has, what will they earn over the next 25 years or 30 years, so that we can then determine how much to put away as a city funding amount. And this year, we are looking at a report that used a 6.75% investment rate of return, or a 6.5% investment rate of return. If you raise the investment rate of return, then you look better funded, because you're saying, I'm going to make more money on my money into the future. If you lower it, you're being a little bit more conservative. And given the formula for downstate police and fire pension, where we can only be 65% in equities and 35% in bonds or other fixed income, we did great this year. We got an 11% rate of return, but we're not expecting another 11% given what's happening this year with both the bond and stock markets. So,
Rainey.
One more. Could I just make one
more question?
Point that's not as intelligent as the one you're going to make, but just let me make it. An important thing for us to remember, and for the community, taxpayers to remember, is that if we say 7% and generated is 4%, then that increases the gap of unfunded liability in the pension fund, unless the city, of course, steps up and covers the loss of the 3%.
and we pay interest on that gap.
Yeah.
May I? Hi.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Tepfer from Tepfer and Associates. Go ahead.
One of the most unfortunate things that goes on in actuarial science, which probably goes back to the 1500s, is we call something a liability, which is really not a liability. And the other thing is that we call something an assumed rate of investment return, which is actually not an assumed rate of investment return. What we really are assuming is what the discount rate is on the pension that will be payable or the event that will occur at some point in the future. And it really makes no difference and doesn't impact at all the fact that we earned 11% last year. That works toward the asset side of the equation. The discount rate, this assumed rate of return, is the discount on the liabilities that we have, the future pension payments that are going to be made. And they're really not liabilities because at this point, we can only estimate what they are. We can do actuarial calculations. So I don't like to look at things as saying, well, we're assuming that we're going to earn 6.5% on our money. It would be wonderful if we can earn 30% on our money, and it would therefore build up the assets and the pensions that are promised by a formula in the plan, in the fund, and the salaries that these people make, et cetera, and whether they retire or become disabled and get a stream of payments in a different manner, are only dependent upon what really happens to those people. We are trying to approximate how much money we need today if we are worried about the last payment, pension payment, that the youngest police officer or firefighter is going to receive. And we'd have to try to place an actuarial value on that. But it's a discounted value. When we assume a lower discount rate, means we need more money today. That's about the way of the approach here. The fact that we earned 11% is laudable. I hope we earn 11% all the time, but I'm still not going to discount at 11%. Because in the long term, we need to assure that we're building up the assets that hopefully will ultimately become payable, and we're not overstating or understating them. So it's not an assumed investment return. It is a discount factor, which is somewhat controlled by the fact that there's an actuary here who thinks he knows all the answers. At least that's what the license on the wall says. Doesn't affect what these people do when they manage their money. Their job is to go out and get the best investment rate that they can with the amount of risk that they're willing to accept. And whether I assume 6.5%, 6.75%, 8%, 11%, 2%, that does not affect what they do. Their job as trustees is different. My job is, quote, to manage the liabilities of the plan. I believe, the royal we, I think that's called, right? I believe that 6.5% is an appropriate rate of discount to be used. I don't want to think that I'm sitting here and saying, I believe that the trust fund is going to earn 6.5%. That's not what I believe. I believe they're going to do a lot better than that because they're smart people and they know what they're doing. But sometimes the market doesn't like to cooperate with everybody. So I just wanted to clarify that, all right? It's not a true liability like we've got a bill and we have to pay it. It's an expected payment that will be made in the future. The present value of that under the contingencies that it will be paid in some form, a retirement pension, a disability pension, perhaps a death benefit, perhaps continuing to a spouse. All of those complicated liabilities, the value today that we need, we compare that to the value of the assets. As the assets go up and salaries change and those expectations change in the future, and that's what the actuarial process tries to do, to balance that out with the three criteria that I've said forever and ever that we are guided by. That we want to build up assets because we have to provide these things. That we want a budgetable, manageable approach for the city so that we don't jump around from year to year. And that we have the current generation of taxpayers paying for the pensions that are going to be paid in the future and not passing the costs off to the children and grandchildren.
Right now, I have two lights, so Alderman Burris and Alderman Rainey.
Thank you, as always, for coming, and I agree with you on the 6.5%, and I'm hopeful that we will go that route. And I'm asking, Marty, what do you need from us?
Just to accept the report, that's all we have to do.
That's all you want.
If we accept the report, then that's what we will move forward in the budget and levy process in December.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Alderman Rainey before we have a motion.
I'll move that we accept the report. I'll move that we accept the report, but I do have a question about
ahead.
it. We have
Oh,
a
it's been second.
Okay.
It's been moved in second.
You cannot dismiss the fact that there is lots of quibbling and arguing over the importance of the percentage that is accounted for by our treasurer and, head of the finance department. I mean, when the number is 7.5, it's always argued that that is very unrealistic, and the rating agencies are quibbling about what should be used. So it's not a number that should be completely dismissed.
Oh, absolutely not. It's absolutely not a
just
number.
think it
I
might
just don't want it to take
No, of course not.
over importance and assume that it is a challenge to the trustees that you must go out and earn this.
Of course not.
All
I
right.
don't think any of us think that.
No, I understand, but there is a common belief that it is an assumed investment return rather than discount rate.
They don't have you for the actuary.
Well,
We know that.
we'll try to arrange more of those. Thank you very much.
All right, well, it's been moved in second. I don't see any more lights. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and I do think that does now conclude our items for consideration. May I have a motion for adjournment? We are adjourned, and I believe in about 3 or 4 minutes, we are supposed to. No, how much time do you want, Alderman Rainey?
10?
In 10 minutes, we will resume the Planning and Development Committee.